then the second part is, what do we do to incorporate this in? So be kind and gentle on your peers. These are chemistry instructors in Baltimore County. But I want you to be faculty researchers at first. And let's get you guys to kind of share out. We're going to talk about the information. By the way, what Baltimore County does is they produce these very simple one-page things, and then they have on their intranet the more detailed analysis they did as a department, but they keep these summaries out disclosing to the world. So my question to you is, you have a chemistry department that examines some lab manual scores, makes a determination that these scores are not what they want them to be, and they consider an alternative way of doing things. So tell me a little bit about their methodology, faculty researchers. What's the good and the areas of improvement in the way they were trying to capture that increase in rate? Well, that's kind of stage one. Tell us a little bit about their design and what did they do and what could have been better. Again, reason number one for doing SLOs, Masters in the Craft. Hi, your first name and your department? Hold on, I can't hear you. I want everybody to hear you, and I know why.
We'll just start the conversation, I guess, right? Okay, I thought it was interesting that they used one campus to start off with the project for Essex. Essex campus was the one they used. They didn't use all of the campuses. And then they determined that it wasn't such a good idea after all, and so they didn't implement it campus or district-wide.
What would be an advantage from a research point of view, faculty research, for eliminating that stuff? I think you limited. What would be a reason why you would do it, and what would be your reason for the limitations of it, right? Those are the conversations you want to have as faculty leaders in this upper process discussion, and then bringing your researcher in when you're being hired. So,
Bob, I have the microphone. Oh, okay, sorry. I have a teacher with too, so I don't want to talk too loud. So Marla, I teach anthropology. I think they're basically modeling a pilot program. You know, you wouldn't want to put all your funding into buying all these new manuals and introducing it district-wide. And then you've got all these new manuals, right, that you spent money on or that the students have spent money on. So piloting things, I think, is really a safe way to go when they're designing research. See if it works one place and implement other places if it doesn't.
yeah, it looks like they use summer grant money to be able to get this together. Another advantage and disadvantage to their study and outcomes assessment. What was it going to capture, or what did they do that captured stuff, and what did they miss? What did they capture, what did they miss? Yeah, please, volunteer. This is the stuff that the outcomes assessment really should be leading so that it gets to decisions so the college can make. Yes, sir.
I think that it is very clever of the chemistry department to measure one class, or at least one level of chemistry. And I think they hit a real winner here in the fact that they were able to show tremendous improvement through creating one new teaching tool, and that was the laboratory manual. It is much more difficult to show a success rate like they showed if they had included other classes, other schools. I think the size of the goal, the size of what they measured to prove the need for the goal was very clever and effective so far as it goes.
I want to ask you some questions about your conclusions in a second, but what's the drawback? So they want to they got scores from a particular group, and they're going to test it again later. What's the downside of it? What's the limitations of their design of finding out whether or not this is going to happen? Yes. Right, and then we'll get from there. Yeah.
The time frames
fall of 2001 and then spring of 2004. And it doesn't tell whether or not there was a pre-test or a post-test or there was a baseline for these students. There's not giving enough information as to where these students came in from anyway. And there's too long of a time frame for reviewing your results.
And we're looking at these as being mastering our craft. Your point well.
In the areas where I teach, the diversity of standards and expectations is tremendous. And from semester to semester, the content the students in their particular class can vary further than
Yeah, and another advantage I thought they did was they brought in Towson State, which obviously must be the four-year institution that they feed to. So in their involvement, they brought in faculty from the local four-year to talk about what are the expectations when students transfer with this chemistry course. What do you want them doing at Towson State? So I thought there was another advantage to what they did. What a disadvantage. Again, you got different groups, different assessments. What's another limitation? Yes.
The other colleges that was already using the old manual and compared their outcomes to this new manual.
Somebody else had mentioned over here, maybe also as well, that maybe that's where they continue doing the opening and keep doing the differences in that diagram. Yeah.
To me,
Sorry, I have a master's in educational psychology, so this is why I went into it.
It should have been with the same instructors.
What
I don't know.
is a different instructor from the academy?
Yeah. Totally, I mean, you might have hired new faculty who had more innovative teaching methods between 2001 and 2004. And you're not sure you can attribute this change to the manual alone. It's not the manual, it may not be the manual alone, plus 95% makes me wonder. That's an awfully impressive increase.
Yeah, let's go one step before that, yes, as they start to have another one. But I wanted to get this particular sentence brought out, and this was what was highlighted by that National Accreditation Organization, of the faith and confidence the faculty have in this use of outcomes assessment, for them to report that we bought a new lab manual, we think this lab manual is going to have an impact on it, we come back in, we do the assessment, and we went the wrong way. That's the way outcomes assessment is supposed to be used. Recognizing that a willingness to experiment, the willing to test, to relying on faculty expertise about what they know, and not using it as a stick. Because if you really are an effective leader, if you really are an effective leader of an institution, and that person dialogues with you, and you say, we tried it, it didn't work, why? What do you think? You know what I mean? Relying on that expertise of faculty to make the decision in the fields that they know. I don't know chemistry. You know what I mean? I don't know this, but I was a faculty member and I can debate with you or discuss with you about methods that we pick. But that kind of level of faith to be able to report is really very rare. And I guess my question to you as a college, I'm here to have honest questions with you, is what would it take at this institution to get to this particular level of honesty and analysis when it comes to programming? Because at my own institution, this is tough. There's still a feeling, somebody asked about buy-in. There's still a feeling, what are you going to use these results for? Well, I want to hear from you guys of what would need to happen here at this institution for that kind of analysis of outcomes to be valid this way. Because I went through your program reviews, and most of them say, outcome met, everything's okay. Outcome met, everything's okay. We're going to change my outcome. We're going to change my outcome. Outcome met, everything's okay. How do you get it to the stage where we tested something, experiment, and it went up and it went down? What would have to happen at this college? What would you recommend or suggest? Seriously, you're going to be showing to the commission over the coming period of time a change of paradigm, right? A way of thinking, a way of doing this the way national award winners are going. How How do we get in that direction?
I know what I would need. I would need support in planning the research rather than just faculty kind of floundering around. I mean, we can talk and we can come to a consensus, but then planning the actual research is where we would need help. So when this new dean is hired, whoever it is, I hope it's not someone who just sits in his office.
Me too. You really want to get these things together. You want to sit with the researchers and be able to say, what am I going to catch and not catch in this analysis? You don't catch everything in research. That's why I said you're not trying to find the absolute proof or the gold standard. I'm going to conduct an experiment. Oh, you're going to conduct an experiment. We need to let these people know. We need to get IRB approval. No, I want to be able to do something and get an analysis of what am I going to catch and what am I going to miss. Because the data only takes you so far. The information that you're collecting is going to take you so far. After that, you're a faculty expert. Where are you going to go? In a limited, you're going to have to make a decision with limited data. Based on this is the direction you're going to go. You may find out that it was wrong later, but you make the best call with the data that you had to move ahead. That's all anybody can ask of you. Yes, what are you going to say?
Well, this is exactly what I was going to say.
And I appreciate your comments, by the way. It's a difficult
I'm
conversation.
Terry from Nursing Division.
Hello?
And so we use a lot of data because we are also accredited by the Board of Registered Nursing.
Yes.
So we're required to have a lot of what you're already talking about. But when, for instance, this example, we're tearing apart this person's evaluation, assessment, or whatever. Are we requiring an accurate research design with variables identified? And this is something I think most of us would do, but yeah, there's some fault and some invalid issues with that research. So
Yeah.
how specific do we need to be? An example for us would be we want to increase our nursing board results. Right now we're about 90%. So as a division policy, we upped our passing rate to 75%. Now in the next few semesters, we'll be able to have data to support whether this change was accurate or not. But again, you're looking at overall 4 semesters, all different instructors. So can't we be a little general with our results?
The answer is yes. This is not. You're not conducting research at the National Institutes of Health, nor should you. You know what I mean? I'm just saying it's an honest question. And we've been more, and I think your point is well taken, which is you're not on a funded grant in determining whether to isolate the AIDS virus. We're practitioners who are trying to find the best possible ways to make our department and our program better. And we gather the information we can, we get the most reliable information we can, the valid information that we can, and we decide, and we roll. Because, and I don't mean to be bashing this, the Community College Baltimore County, these faculty won a national award, and their study is very flawed from a research point of view. You got different groups, you're doing it over different years, and heck, they're at least going up to the plate and swinging. So they go with an idea of saying, we think this, and that's why I want to talk about their conclusions. But the real critical questions that you go through with the data that you have is not experiment, is what can we conclude from the data? What can we grab from this data that we can make a change? And what can't we conclude? What's still limited? Does the evidence that we've collected suggest a next step? From the information, that's what we're going to talk about as chemistry teachers. What would be your next step, the next thing that you'd like to be able to do based on the evidence? And what are other kinds of questions we might ask? Somebody who's at this particular table over here mentioned that, maybe we repeat this. Try it with a different thing and see if we get the same response we got before. Notice the purpose of this faculty inquiry is about you guys doing number 1 on that list. Mastering the craft and seeing about student learning and seeing the curriculums working. And then going to faculty, going to leadership and saying, we think the following resources are going to help close that gap, period. And I think the reason why that outcomes assessment hasn't had the groundwork here that it could have been is that you guys didn't have faith in the process. And you didn't have faith in what was going to be used with it. And you have one heck of a SLO coordinator who's trying to get this off the ground. And you need to be able to sit back and say, okay, we need to build a structure that this kind of inquiry is taking place, that we can see it, and that's what the accreditors want to see. That they can go through your SLO reports and say, wow, there's vivid analysis going on here. These guys are making decisions. And not only that, when they find a gap, look, the leaders are assigning money. And then they're evaluating whether the money worked. Not that you have to be 99% all the time, because I would get a little curious too when you're already... It isn't about we always start at 60 and go to 90. You may find out that the rates don't go up. That's not what the commission is looking for. The commission is looking for processes and analysis that you guys are vividly interacting with your discipline. And when they came out before, they couldn't find them. That's really what SLOs are all about. The other key aspect is the best venue for discussing your findings. I want to go back to that question in a second, but I wanted to make sure that I wanted to make clear for your researcher that's coming is that your IR office helps you make these decisions and can design them and can brainstorm with you some limitations of the study. Go with it, experiment with it, but it might not totally work. And really, we're largely interventionists. We're trying to find out whether something that we're trying to do is working. Not about finding the perfect way of teaching algebra. And this is really more non-experimental. We're not doing experiments. We're looking at data and trying to draw conclusions. Best we can. And it's not about absolute truth. It's looking for patterns of evidence that inform our decisions so we can get better. Go ahead. No, I'd rather hear from you, but that was a very good question that you asked. But okay. Not like I plan on going into the Golan Heights or anything like that. Interventionist in the sense that, I guess that language comes from me being an elementary school teacher. We try an intervention to help us students. So we're more from a point of view of coming up with solutions that you think are going to work. But experimenters coming up with these absolute thought processes. We're really just seeing whether what we're doing is having an effect. And if so, is it strong? Do we continue it or not? Do we stop doing it? It's mainly about trying to find out what's happening with students. Did this work? Do we change or do we keep? Yes, please.
Maria from Physical Therapist Assistant Program. And I'm very new to this whole, to academia, so I may be speaking out of turn, but I want to go back to the question that you asked, which was what would it take for faculty to maybe buy into this? And my experience is that it's not perfect research, and as a physical therapist, I use research all the time to help provide an intervention for a patient, and it's not always perfect.
You use the intervention.
Yeah, but what I wanted to say was, I think, and I don't know if I'm right about this, but one of the elephants in the room is program review is tied to some funds for your department. And if you have a piece of research that says we went in the wrong direction, there's a sense that then you're not going to get your funds. And so I don't, maybe I'm out of line, but I think that may be part of the issue and the lack of trust, maybe, that, we're willing to do this, but then are you going to say no because we went in the wrong direction?
So it's faith in the use of the results to make change. I would argue that if you find them going in the wrong direction, it's more of an identification that program review should help inform that. Remember, there's 5 reasons why you do it, and number 3 is resources. Number 1 and number 2 are mastering your craft and determining whether the curriculum is working. You need to demonstrate that when the commission comes out. That you're looking at these things and you're making curriculum change. Well, we do this. Then get it in a format that demonstrates that you're looking at these things to make changes and that you're allocating and making changes for your own professional development. But number 3 would be, and I appreciate you doing that. I noticed the question didn't get answered, and so I was going to let it go because I think it's a critical question for COS faculty to answer, which is, how do we get to the point where we report this kind of information with confidence? And the point I hear you making is, we need to know that if this information comes in and we do it in the best way we can and it goes down It does not hurt us. It actually provides a forum for more resource allocation, or at least equal to what we did before. And that's important for the leadership to hear. Yes?
Yeah, as a co-chair of the program review committee, if you would look at the rubrics that we use to evaluate, under no rubric does it say that the outcomes of your plans, any plans, whether they be outcomes plans or facility plans or personnel plans, is never, ever used. Ever. And in all of our trainings, we really stress that we want to know if it has worked or not, because one of the ideas behind this is to make sure that we don't keep doing the same things over and over again if they don't work. So the feeling may be out there because, yes, program review does impact funding, because if you don't pass program review, you don't get put into the pot. But it isn't about your plans and whether or not those plans were successful. That is not the criteria that are used. So if that is out there, then that's a misconception.
So, yeah, so having them communicate that more, I think, would be important, that we can express to them that the evaluations have nothing to do with whether the plan was successful. Yes?
Yes. I'm on the standard 3 for resources, which includes the budget allocation and the rubric that you're talking about.
Yes.
And so we're looking at different rubrics, like for North Orange Community College. And so we're trying to determine what criteria to use on that rubric. But one thing that you mentioned was that Miracosta has a database. You said a data warehouse that people could access. Are you going to ask for that or mention that for us to have? Or should we ask for that?
You just did. Yeah. No, one of the key things, and it leads to the next sort of point, was old models of thinking for research. Back in the day, and they tend to be the old crusty researchers, the joke was the researcher sat in the back office, read the Wall Street Journal. You'd come in, ask a report, they'd generate the report, push it out, and go back to the next page of the Wall Street Journal. Right? It was largely produce reports for the feds, get the IPEDS data done, get the MIS submissions in, do whatever, and it was very little faculty interaction. And that was a very common way. And to be fair to those folks, most of the researchers 5 to 8 to 10 years ago got their start from data. They were largely data analysts and data programmers who knew how to get the tables together to produce the doggone reports that went to the feds. So that model has evolved, and the old model of institutional research, and I want to share this with you, you'd make your request, and the researcher handled all of this stuff, getting the data, and then they kicked it back out to you in a linear way. And I would argue that a better way for you guys to interact with your new researcher is as a partner. That the research stuff that you guys are going to be doing, a research comes in, request comes in for you. I just got done with working with a community college in Hawaii where we built on a grant what was called faculty inquiry groups. Getting the effective decisions to faculty members and then having them inform leadership about the decisions so that changes could take place. And what we tried to do then with this process was collaborative with the faculty member, talk about the design, talk about what you want to learn, talk about things that need to get done. But giving to faculty and to folks as much access to the data as we could. One, it made us better, effective researchers, and number two, you're able to play in the sandbox. You're structured to do. How many of you use the CalPass data tool? How many of you know how to use the CalPass data tool? Okay, let's go back a step. How many of you have ever heard of the SMART tool that you can pull your program review data like this? I promise you will spend 15 minutes working that tool. Do you have your password now that it's IEBC? Well, I'm going to show you something that's at your fingertips that faculty can get access to. Thank you. That's already there. But the argument is push as much data to faculty and let them play. Let them get involved in the information and then leave me to the negotiation or discussion of how the research is done. But notice, faculty and research come together, you act on the findings, and you keep the cycle rolling. But the data warehouse, if you didn't have one, we're still building it out. That'll allow you at your desk to be able to have canned queries already done, ready to go that you can play. And I'm going to show you a tool that's available to COS that's free. It's free. You just need to be able to determine how you're going to be able to access it. So I will, and I promise.
Bob,
Yes?
I do,
A
I'm
voice?
over here.
Yes, hi.
I do have a question about Data Mart because they've redone the ARC scorecard and now you can get into Data Mart. I mean, we're hearing that it is a marvelous place to look for data. What's your opinion?
Yeah, will you bear with me? Well, let me ask one question that I want you to reflect on, and I'm going to pull up a couple of sites, and let's see the data and access that's available. Well, my question to you is read that last section of the report.
Read that last section of the report, the last couple of sections, and see if you can think of another reason why those rates went up, other than the change to lab manual. They attribute it to, we came up with a new lab manual, and presto, look at the rates. But my question to you is read it, read what the faculty wrote before, and see if you can hypothesize another reason why it really happened. I'll let you do that. I'm going to pull the page up and let's get some discussions, okay?